I was fired for being a vegan. And I was working in an animal welfare organization.
Welcome to the Our Hen House interview. This is Jasmine Singer.
This is Marianne Sullivan.
And we're so happy to welcome our guest today, Jordi Casamitjana. Did I say that right?
You said perfectly, so very good.
Oh, good. I'm so glad. And Jordi is a vegan zoologist specializing in animal behavior, but in addition to his scientific research, he has worked as an undercover investigator, an animal welfare consultant, as well on zoo closures, illegal hunting prosecutions, and the banning of bullfighting in his native Catalonia. So much to talk about. He also became pretty well known in 2020 for a legal case regarding the legal protection of ethical vegans from discrimination in Great Britain. He's a freelance content writer, video creator, public speaker, and is the author of Ethical Vegan, A Personal and Political Journey to Change the World, and most recently, Why Vegans Don't, a philosophical guide to vegan behavior. Wow, Jordi, that's a lot. Does it make you tired to hear an intro like that?
Well, not really, because I do many of these, and the truth is my life is long. So, and you can see with my white hairs, for those that can see my image. So I'm older, so I'm bound to have done a lot of stuff in my life. So
I love it. That's a beautiful way of looking at it. And we talked a lot about what happened in 2020 when it happened. And I'm just excited to be able to pick your brain about it today. Before we jump in, just a quick reminder to our listeners and viewers about the Our Hen House podcasts. Rising Anxieties comes out on Tuesdays, The Hen Report on Thursdays, and the long form interview, that's this, on Fridays. Bonus for Flock members comes out on Mondays. We're a podcast. We're on YouTube. Hit subscribe, hit like wherever you listen. Okay, Jordi, let's jump in. We have already, I feel like, laid out the foundation for a lot of the ground you cover. A vegan, a zoologist focused on animal behavior, an undercover investigator, a successful campaigner, and the person behind what I think is the only legal decision recognizing ethical veganism as a protected philosophical belief. So, what would you say when you hear all of that? And I know you just said you have like a charming, dapper, whitish beard, so you have the years behind you to prove. But what is the through line? What is the problem that you've been trying to solve your whole adult life?
Oh, that is a very good question. I love when I get a question I never expected, and this is one of them. So I would say, if I have to summarize it in a single quest, is the quest for the truth. Everything I do is about the truth about who I am, the truth about who the animals are, animal rights, all these sort of things, the truth about somebody that broke the law who has to be recognized as guilty, the truth about veganism being a belief that is as important as any other belief or any other religion. So all is, and even a scientist, a scientist means trying to find out the truth and explain it in a way that everybody's convinced that it's the truth. So it's always either the legal part of it or the scientific part of it or the campaigning part of it. Is always about trying to discover the truth myself and trying to express the truth to other people in the hope that that might be helpful to someone. So it's all about the truth, really.
I love that answer. I mean, if everyone would acknowledge the truth or at least try to understand the truth, the world would be a very different place. All right, let's talk about this word vegan, which can be a very problematic word, I think. It has come since it was kind of an invented word, but since then it has come to mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. It might describe a person, a philosophy, a diet, a type of food, vegan burgers or whatever. And when it describes a person, it might mean one who just doesn't eat animal products for whatever reason whatsoever, or only those who do so for very specific philosophical reasons, which I think certainly defines you and many of the people listening to this podcast. So what's your meaning? What is your particular meaning for the word vegan, which I think is a very important word to you?
For me, it's the most important word of all. Really. If I only had to eliminate all the words and only use one for the rest of my life, I would choose that one. Because almost everything that is meaningful to me has the word vegan attached to it. Or the variation of it, veganizing, veganized. It's so useful. It's so translatable. It has the right number of vowels and consonants. It is beautiful in itself, independently of the content. For me, it means many things. It's a complex word. It means many things. Mostly the most important part is the philosophy. For me, it's a philosophy that's the beginning, the core, that's where everything begins. But that philosophy develops into something, a way of living, a lifestyle. And that lifestyle develops into a different way of eating, different way of wearing clothes, different way of buying and shopping. And that all together develops an identity. It's also an identity. That identity also develops a transformative socio-political movement. And it is the agents and the channel to actually change the world to the better. So it's from the very small thing, a philosophy, a thought, that one day you wake up and say, I'm a vegan now. I have a thought, to changing the entire world. It basically encompasses every detail from the small to the big that humans are involved with, because they, at this moment, so we have created so much suffering and so much harm that the only reason that we should still exist is to correct that harm. And the process of correcting that harm for your body, for your fellow human beings, for your fellow sentient beings, and for the environment, I call all this veganism. So it's a huge thing for me.
Wow, that is I love that answer too. It's changed a lot. I think just people's reactions to it, certainly in the, 22 years I've been vegan and the 30 some odd years Marianne has been vegan, and even the 16 years since we've been doing our hen house. What would you say is the most common way that you see even serious vegans shrinking veganism into something smaller than it should be?
Well, the most common way that the general public does, and sometimes even vegans, is shrinking it to a diet, simply a way of eating food, which I think that would be like, I don't know, summarizing Islam into a way of excluding pigs in diet. It's a very small, narrow aspect of it. But when you consider veganism, what it means, is much bigger than that. But most people don't know this. Most people assume it's just a diet. What I say is, well, there might be people that they call themselves vegans. The only thing they do is they eat the diets the vegans eat. And then it's an issue of, should you use that term? Are there other terms that fit better, like plant-based and all this? Well, there's a huge debate about who deserves the label, which type of vegans they are, how much you should accept somebody else's to be vegan, all the gatekeeping, all the stuff. That's part of a movement. That's part of anything that has a word and a label. It will be fights. I accept that. For me, I have a very specific way of looking at it. I look at the past. I look at who created the word in the first place. I looked at the history, how the concept was developed. I look at the present, how many different type of people use it and in which way. And I look at the future, where we're going. And from all that, I have my understanding of what veganism is. But I accept that other people might use it differently, and might use it in a way that I would prefer not to use it, because might confuse a bystander that tries to figure out what veganism is.
Yeah, I have often wished we had a few more words because that word vegan is carrying a lot of different baggage for a
Yes.
lot of different people. But it is the word we've got. And I love it too. I'm not going to deny it. So the legal case, let's talk about that a little bit. What became protected there wasn't vegan products or dietary preference or anything like that, but ethical veganism as a philosophical belief. And correct me if I'm wrong, but also just tell us the story.
Yeah, what it become protected is basically holding that belief. So basically the belief that many people might have, some of them by law in different jurisdictions are protected or not. That means if you hold that belief, you're going to be discriminated or harassed for that belief. And yet you call different terms. In the US, you call it protected classes. In the UK, we call it protected characteristics. But it's the same thing. You have one of those, you cannot be discriminated against that. So veganism in the UK has become a protected characteristic under the Equality Act 2010, which means it's as protected. That will be gender, sexual orientation, religion, marital status, all those protected characteristics that tend to be quite similar in different countries. Now in the UK, we added ethical veganism, particularly ethical veganism, with this word, which is a kind of a legal term, in a way to prevent what you were asking me before, to prevent the word vegan to be used in a too wide sense. So the term ethical vegan has now officially in the UK been defined as following the official definition of veganism of the Vegan Society, those who created the word vegan in 1944, and the definition took them decades. They finalized it in 1988. That definition, if you follow that philosophy in that definition, you officially regarded in the UK as an ethical vegan, and therefore it becomes illegal and lawful to discriminate against you because of that, to harass against you because of that, to victimize you because of that, in the work relationship, in public and private services, in landlord tenant relationships. It really embraces a huge amount of human interaction where discrimination might occur. And you're right, it is the only jurisdiction in the world so far that has reached that level of protection. And that happened in the UK I would not say by chance, because veganism has been quite advanced in the UK compared with other countries. I'm not surprised the UK is the first one who did this, because again, the Vegan Society was created here, the word vegan was created here. Even if veganism wasn't invented here, there were vegans millennia ago, the words were created. So it's not surprising that we're advancing in that regard. But I didn't expect that I was going to be involved in this, because it happened to be by chance. I was fired for being a vegan. And I was working in an animal welfare organization, which, of course, I've been a vegan in an animal welfare as opposed to animal rights organization. Doesn't mean that that's not that surprising to me that vegans are seen sometimes as a bit of a radical, even within animal welfare organizations. So in my case, I've worked in many animal welfare organizations. I always been the odd one, the vegan one, the more radical one. But in this case, I didn't expect that would lead me to be fired. And I was fired because what happens is I discovered that the pension fund I was auto-enrolled to, in the UK, there is a law that says if you join any organization, you have to be auto-enrolled into a pension fund selected by the employer. You have a state fund too, but then in addition to that state fund, you need to have extra money from a private fund, and that has to be chosen by the employer by law. So when I checked the one that I was assigned to by the employer, I realized it was one of the worst possible pension funds. It was investing in vivisection companies, pharmaceutical companies, gas and petrol companies, tobacco companies, the worst possible ones. And I could not believe that animal protection organization had chosen that particular one where there were others. They had the label ethical in there that didn't do any of that. So I complained. And they said, well, we'll change it, don't worry. And I kept complaining that they didn't change it. I said, well, I don't want any percentage of my salary going to that. And they put it anyway. And because I didn't drop it after a year of pushing, I was fired. And then I realized, well, I had no choice. As a vegan, I had to find any option that minimizes my contribution to animal exploitation. There are pension funds that they don't have these companies. So that's an option. I should pursue this. I have no choice. And I realized I've been fired without having any choice because I'm a vegan. Then I approached a lawyer. I said, look, I think I'm being fired because I'm a vegan. That must be unlawful, really. He said, well, not really. So veganism is not a protected class or characteristic yet, but it can be, because the Equality Act has a clause that says philosophical beliefs, which means non-religious beliefs, can also be protected if you follow a process in which you have to show that belief, and the judge have to look at a series of characteristics, and if they fulfill them all, this belief fulfills them all, then the judge will declare that belief protected. If not, it will reject it. And nobody had done veganism before. So I was going to be the first. So the whole responsibility on my shoulders. If he rejects it, all the vegans will hate me forever because will not be protected forever. But if I'm successful, I will help all the vegans. If I help all the vegan cause, and because the more protected you are, the more you can express your veganism and fight for the animals. So I decided to go for it. I asked the lawyer, how much you charge me? And I realized I could not afford it. And that's where I had to crowdfund. I had to take 2 years of fighting for this. The litigation took 2 years. And eventually I was successful. But the saga was so long and movie-like that I wrote a book called Ethical Vegan to explain how I did it. So because it was like a thriller. But I exploited the end because I was successful. Veganism in 2020, January 2020, became a protected philosophical belief under the Equality Act 2010.
Wow.
Yeah, and
that's
I just want to
incredible.
mention for people listening who are in the US, there is a similar principle in law. And I think it has been pursued, but never, as in your case, did it result in a published decision that people can follow, or if so, very lower courts. But it does exist, and I know that people have argued it in prison cases, for example, like saying that people are entitled to vegan food. Various kinds of situations in which it might become relevant. Yours is certainly a very unusual one. But I just not to hijack the conversation, but I just wanted people to know that that's not exclusively a UK principle. It is also a principle under U.S. constitutional law.
You're right. And many people from many countries have contacted me since. In fact, the publicity of my case was so huge because really the issue is relevant everywhere. Veganism is the same concept everywhere, and there's some sort of equality law in most places. So the point is when it will happen in other places. So many countries approached me, many people in similar situations. I just for advice how I did it. So obviously my evidence is available to everyone. I produce more than 1,200 pages of evidence. Many of it can be used in other cases. And there have been legal successes in other cases. There was somebody in Bologna in Italy. Regionally, there was a problem with a teacher that she was vegan. And the law in Bologna says that vegan pupils have the right to have vegan meals at the school, state-run schools, but not the teachers. And then she felt discriminated. She took this official education system to court, used my case, even if it has no jurisdiction there, and won. So because the argument, my picture was in the Bologna papers, so that shows that even if without jurisdiction, the legal argument has weight and goes
Absolutely.
it goes international. So.
Absolutely. I mean, you can if you have nothing to cite that's like in your own jurisdiction, of course you would go to another court that has decided this, and so it really does have the power to spread around the world.
Yeah, and I mean, speaking of spreading around the world, you gave us a couple examples right now, but I would love it if you could go a bit more into how this outcome works in the real world, because presumably it doesn't mean that everyone has to accommodate anything a vegan asks for. At least in your view, what is the boundary between legitimate accommodation and what will be seen as overreach, especially for vegans working inside non-vegan institutions?
Yes, what this law does is a leveler, puts vegans at the same level than any other protected class, any other protected groups or people. So it doesn't give you more power than anybody else. It doesn't give you less power either. That means if somebody discriminates against you for being a vegan, meaning treating the non-vegan members of the company differently, giving them, for instance, free food where you have to pay for it, or giving them free equipment goods, for instance, while you have to pay for it, that now is unlawful in the UK. In fact, what happens immediately after my case was successful was that the fire brigade, the British fire brigade, issue automatically vegan leather boots to the vegan firefighters. Kind of the next week. Up to that point, everybody was fighting and trying to. It kind of went automatically. Everybody that is vegan that can get it as anybody else. Otherwise, it would be discrimination. Immediately, I got calls and messages from people saying, "Look, I've been fighting for having soya milk in my company for 10 years, and now next day after your case, I got it on the fridge." Or my children are going to school, they are vegan, but they are not providing them vegan meals. But now, after your case, they just did it straight away. Even some bizarre cases, the Freemasons in Scotland, that the Freemasons, they do lots of rituals.
Yeah.
So they
Yeah.
changed some of the leather components of the rituals into non-leather versions to allow vegans to become Freemasons after centuries of having the same thing. They are really obsessed with tradition, and yet they change it. So it was quite widespread, the effect. And often things don't make headlines, but they are real changes in real lives on people. And every time I meet somebody that knows my case, they always tell me how their life improved because my legal victory. So.
How wonderful that must feel. There's one, I mean, we have other things to talk about too, but I do want to go back to one thing about the case. And you mentioned earlier, and it's the same in the US, that this legal principle behind protecting a philosophical belief is very similar to that protecting religious
Mm.
belief. But you really make a point of explaining why the belief that underlies veganism is not a religion. It's different than a religion. Can you just go into that a little bit?
Yes, the good thing about the Equality Act that many laws don't have is that has this separation between religious belief and philosophical belief. Other jurisdictions don't use this term. For instance, in Ontario, which is a case trying to achieve the same thing I have been achieved for a long time, for firefighter there, they don't have philosophical belief. They have creed. They have religion and creed. Of course, it's not quite the same philosophical belief. It's a bit closer to religious concept. But the advantage of philosophical belief is that clearly it doesn't link it at all to philosophy. So the only thing, sorry, to religion, the only thing it has to have is some coherent to be accepted as a protected belief. And there is a test in the UK, it's called the Granger test, that is applied. It was created by the Employment Appeal Tribunal, which is a higher court that creates precedents. And when the first contested belief was put on the table, was about environmentalists, and it was appealed, then the higher court set the rules. Basically, which are the conditions that a belief have to fulfill to become protected. And my case was successful because I fulfill all those conditions. And things like it have to affect more a substantial part of someone's life. You have to be coherent. You have to be cogent. It should not affect negatively the rights of others. It should be more than just an opinion. All things like that. Actually, the system worked quite well because they've been beliefs have been rejected and they've been beliefs have been accepted. And if I had been the judge in all of them, I would have accepted and rejected exactly the right ones. So the bad ones, like homophobia and things like that, were rejected. The good ones, like pacifism, environmentalism, they've been accepted. So it's actually worse. That system works. But it's because the letter of the law, it makes it easier for us to do it. While, for instance, in Ontario, the lawyers will have to argue that creed should include non-religious beliefs too. And that's a bit more harder to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I want to switch gears and talk about your latest book, Why Vegans Don't. It initially sounds from the title as if it's essentially negative, but you suggest that the don'ts are really a series of yeses. So, yes to non exploitation, yes to justice, yes to sentient life. So, what is your key advice to helping fellow vegans not come across as only interested in personal purity?
Yes, I would say the word no or don't is the most powerful word humans have ever conceived. In fact, probably is the first word that we ever conceived, even as individuals. The first thing we said when we were born is moving the head like that when we're trying to be fed by something we don't want. And that's how the first communication with another human began. So the first thing we say is no. And as a society, saying no to injustice, saying no to abuse, saying no to dictatorship, saying no to everything that is bad is what has driven progress. There hasn't been any progress in accepting the status quo. It's always denying that the status quo should stay forever. So and therefore, you should be quite proud to know that we can say no. In some places, you are not allowed to say no. In the countries that you can say no, you have to use it. You have to use it all the time. And a way to say no, which is a very complicated way, is say, I'm vegan, because a vegan said, I don't participate in animal exploitation. I don't want to be part of this. I don't accept this food because it contains this. I'm not going to go. Just you should not be afraid to say no, because we live with a yes obsessed culture that is quite shallow. Saying yes to everything doesn't change anything. And in the world we live, without change, things will get even worse. So we have to hold the banner of no and carry it with pride. And that's why I wrote the book, Why is Vegan Done? Because I wanted to label it quite clear and unapologetically that we are rejecting bad things. And if you are rejecting bad things systemically, you are a decent human being. So decent human beings reject bad things. So that's my book.
Jasmine alluded to, but I really want to get it in a little more into the whole question of personal purity and being seen that way. And purity has become something of a dirty word in vegan advocacy, I think. And I can see why. Some people has more to do with personality, I think, than position sometimes. But I wonder what its role is. I mean, you are obviously very firm about I won't call it purity because that was a confusing word, but drawing sharp lines and complying with them. So is there and it just runs the risk, I think, of being just dismissed as self-righteous, or which is how it's usually framed, or as making veganism seem impossibly difficult,
Really.
rather than something beautiful and productive. I'm not sure what my question is here. How do you pull off the whole project? And I think this is something that everybody listening probably struggles with, the whole project of actually complying with your values and not pissing everybody off.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. The word purist isn't a slur these days against the vegan. You're purist. Or even the pragmatists within the movement, they will label you as a purist as an insult. But I'm not a purist. I like imperfection. I'm a fan of wabi-sabi, this Japanese concept of beauty comes from imperfection. I love imperfection, and I think the nature is perfect because it's so imperfect. But I'm morally consistent. And that's a different thing. Being morally consistent doesn't mean that you're a purist. So, for instance, I like I like games too, board games. I will never, ever win through cheating. I will never, although you might think strategically, if you want to win, you should cheat. I wouldn't, because I have morals. And for me, following my morals consistently across the board, from a game to real life and that situation, is essential. First, to understand who I am, to make sense of my life, not to lose my sense in a fuzziness of nothingness, but also to communicate to other people the difference between right and wrong, here and there, today and tomorrow. If you're not clear about these things, you're just bubbling wrong. And yet you will be born, you will bubble along, you will die, nothing will change. If you want to change the world, you need to know which direction you go. That means here's right, there is wrong. So we should stay here, we move over there. These are very clear things. And so I'm a very clear person. My brain is designed to be quite strategically clear. So I have a particular brain that works better in black and white situations. That gives an advantage for me, but it also gives an advantage to communicate black and white concepts and not to dilute them unnecessarily. And that's what could happen. So for me, there's going to be people explaining the veganism cause and the movement we are in different ways. I think I have to be the one that makes it clear in black and white, because that's the role I've chosen. I don't know that's the right direction. Who knows? We are not in charge of the movement. All the things that we can do, the only thing we can do is to give our point of view. That's the only thing unique. We have our genes. Nobody had my genes. Nobody had the book side. Nobody had the information I received in the order I received it. So my point of view is unique. And I'm the only thing I can do, I don't know whether it would be the right strategy of tactic, is say it as I see it from my point of view, hoping that that will inspire others, help others, find solutions to problems. And if not, I cannot go beyond that. I cannot go beyond expressing my point of view. For me, the word vegan gives me that clarity. It's a clear concept with a clear definition, with a clear philosophy, with a clear horizon, with a clear solution to many of the problems. So I'm going to stick to the clear solution.
I love that. I'm just curious about your brain.
Well,
This, how do you think you developed this way of communicating in, I mean, to just put it the way you put it, in black and white terms?
Well, I'm going to give you a revelation. I haven't publicly said it yet, although many people know this. One day I will probably do it because I want to write a book about this. I'm autistic and ADHD. So I have ADHD and autism. So I have already a brain that works better in a black and white scenario. So it's not just me, it's everybody that is autistic, which many vegans are. Yeah.
I saw a study. I mean, I don't remember anything except the headline that there was a connection between autistic individuals and vegan individuals.
Yeah, and that's a book I want to write. I want to write that book. It's my second book in the pipeline at the moment. But yeah, there are many reasons why it works, because we are more black and white. Veganism is very black and white. So we are very ethical. There are many research that shows that autistic people tend to be very ethical. Why? Because we understand rules. This is wrong. We don't do it anymore. The fuzzy areas of gray areas, this is a very neurotypical way of looking at the world. We don't, if that's incorrect, if that's wrong, we don't do it. See, and also we empathize more with non-human animals. People used to say that autistic people empathize less. That's now it's understood it's the opposite. Sometimes we don't look at people's faces because we see too much. We don't look at people's eyes because we can read too much and it's overwhelming. So we do have empathy. I didn't know I was autistic most of my life, but I didn't know I could understand non-human animals better than anybody else I knew. So all that together made me for me a vegan by default almost. It would be very unlikely to me to have reached my age and not have become a vegan. Because that's my natural way of looking at the world, but also helps in communication because it prevents you to get too lost, too confused, too much influence from external forces. There are forces, internal, external, that are constantly trying to dilute our movement from other movements mixing with ours. There might be it's perfectly legitimate people to follow different movements, but sometimes it's easier if you know when one begins and the other ends, and all these sort of things. You get less confused. So in all that, I think it helps understanding. So that's why I decided at one point, okay, what I'm going to be contributing in this vegan endeavor, building the vegan world, will be writing, explaining things, looking at patterns that others cannot see, trying to see how the past and the future and how it mixes in the present. Try to see directions that nobody sees. Try to see the mechanics of the movement. So it's called systematizing. Is very obviously people do that very well. Seeing mechanics and find out what's wrong and try to find out troubleshooting how to solve it. So I'm applying all that comes natural to me into the vegan discourse.
Yeah, I have a follow-up question, but it's to Marianne, and help me out here because I'm only like partway there. But I think it's really fascinating to hear Jordi talking about this kind of black and white way of looking at it. And when I think of you, Marianne, and maybe it's because you're a lawyer, and I just know the way think, I think of a lot of gray, like not black and white thinking. And yet you are, for all intents and purposes, very much of a, excuse my turn of phrase here, but very much of a purist vegan. So what am I missing in terms of the fact that, like, I'm sitting here staring at a screen of, like, a black and white thinker and a gray thinker? Like, what am I missing, Marianne?
Clearly that all roads lead to veganism. It's so simple.
Precisely. Yeah, I agree. I always say, I used to call people like particle people and wave people. The light, it has this duality that is both a particle and a wave. And for many years, physicists have been discussing.
Quantum
And they
physics.
say if you look at it as a particle, it looks like a particle. If you look at it as a wave, it looks like a wave. So it's basically both. So I think we humans are both particle and wave people. Particle is the black and white people, and the wave people is the opposite, the gray thing. And I think we all both. But if you look at us from a particle point of view, we look more a black and white type of creature. If we look at us from a wave point of view, we look more like a wave type creature. We're still basically the same thing. So I just basically decided that I will express myself as a particle person. And that because that thing, it fits more what I want to say and how I want to say it. And my brain helps me because it works better in that way. Other people are more wavy. That doesn't mean that I'm bad, I'm right and they're wrong. They express it more with color shades and waves of nothing begins and nothing ends. But we all the same. And as you just said, we are fighting for the same vegan world of the future. We only contributing to that building with whatever tools we have.
Exactly. I mean, it doesn't, how you're looking at it doesn't change what's right and wrong. It just changes how you express it, how you come to the conclusion. But I think they all lead to the same place, and that's veganism.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on because I do want to talk a little bit more about the things you cover in the book, which I'm not sure whether this book is for experienced vegans or new vegans or somewhere in between because it serves both, but in different ways. But the kind of the core of the book are these 5 core axioms. So could you just tell people what they are?
Yeah, a long time ago, I decided that I wanted to go deeper into the philosophy of veganism. And any philosophy is never going to be completely defined by a simple definition. So the definition is the starting point. Then you need to go into the principles, the core principles, which in philosophy you call them axioms. Axioms are those statements that those following that philosophy believe, whether they believe by common sense, by evidence, by logic, doesn't matter. They are convinced, their convictions. And I looked around, which were the axioms, the five, I looked for five, that all vegans of all types that I met clearly believe. And I identified five. And I did the same with the philosophy of animal rights too, in an article I wrote about the axioms of animal rights, which are different. They're not the same. And the ones of veganism, the first one is ahimsa, the most important one. Ahimsa is a Sanskrit word that means do no harm or non-violence. For me, it is essentially that not harming others or trying not to harm others is the basic moral baseline. So this is the minimum we can do. Attempt not to harm others. This is the most important one for me. It's not a reduction of suffering. This is animal welfare lingo. It's not reduction. It is not suffering we're talking about. It's harm, meaning there's an agent that harms another one. So this is what we stop. The agent should stop harming the other one. The second one is the animal sentience one, which is that all members of the animal kingdom are sentient beings. We don't make distinctions. We don't only say that the primates are sentient beings. For us, for all vegans, we consider all members of the animal kingdom sentient beings. The third is the anti-exploitation, which means all forms of exploitation of other beings harms them. And because it harms them is against the principle number one. Therefore, that means these three ones can be summarized with this sentence. Veganism is against the exploitation of sentient life, which is precisely the first definition of the vegan society in 1944. So so it kind of fits what it was in the past and what it is in the present. The fourth is anti-speciesism. The anti-speciesism means discriminated against anyone for who they are is wrong. So basically non-discriminating, being anti-speciesist is the right ethical way because it goes beyond to harm. It goes into treating them with or without respect and all these sort of things. And the last one, which is the one that took me some time to figure out, is the one that actually explains why veganism is a social movement, not just a personal thing. It's called the vicariousness principle. Vicariousness, you probably, Marian, have heard this term linked to law because it's that principle often used in law that says somebody else commits an offense, you might be guilty of that offense, even if you didn't do it, if you have a relationship such as being the boss of that person and things like that. So you might have a vicarious liability even if you didn't commit the crime.
Yeah, hugely important concept in law, figuring out not just who did it, but who's responsible.
Exactly. In this case, what it means in practical terms for veganism is that indirect harm caused by somebody else's is also harm we should try to stop. And that's when it becomes beyond you. It's not longer, I'm going to avoid harming, I'm going to avoid exploiting, I'm going to avoid being discriminated. Now you have to avoid somebody else's harm to somebody else, even if it's indirect. So that fifth is the one that makes vegan activists, and that fifth is the one that make veganism a social political movement trying to change the world.
So let's just stick with that fifth axiom for a moment, because in your discussion of that, you point out that the reason vegans do not use animal products or use services where animals were exploited is not to reduce the supply by reducing the demand. This is as you say, a narrow-minded capitalist approach that we often have believed, but because otherwise we would be complicit of the harm the exploitation causes. So it's a philosophical reason, not an economic reason. That's I believe, according to you. You'll have to correct me if I'm wrong. But I feel like you're talking about a common misconception of the reasons for veganism that is embraced by many non-vegans as an excuse to not be vegan. Like, it's pointless, it's hard, it would be totally ineffective, so why bother? Tell me your thoughts.
Yeah, no, you got it right. So the reason why people don't become vegan could be very diverse, but the most important one, perhaps, and the one less discussed, is because they're comfortable with the life they have. And we vegans say we're going to change the world, and we are like me, vegans, black and white, like me. We are not going short. We say we're going to change everything, every single aspect of the world. The politics, the consumerism, the way we treat each other, the way we treat the environment, the way we treat other animals, and the way we treat everything. Of course, people say, no, I don't want to change anything. As people tend to not to want to change the status quo. Well, that's exactly the challenge that we always progressive movements have. We have a stable status quo that is conservative, doesn't want to change, and a minority of people that is pushing for a change. And veganism is one of the leading progressive movements these days that we want to change everything. Of course, we have a reaction, but the solution is not saying, oh, okay, let's lower the goals until they're going to say, fine, I'm happy. Because if we do that, the only thing they're going to change is the minimum possible. So they still consider that nothing has changed. They still consider they can eat the same thing, they can do the same thing. And that is not really changing the status quo. That's only removing the guilt of recognizing that the status quo is incorrect. So I think we have to be strict as well in not reducing our goals and having vegan goal as the goal of the future. That makes me both a radical and an idealist. And I accept this too with honor. I hope nobody thinks that I'm less than a radical or less than an idealist. Radical means I want to change a lot. And idealist means I'm looking for something I haven't seen yet, an idea that doesn't exist, but nevertheless, that's where I'm going. Because I'm not a pragmatist. I'm not just looking at solutions for now. I'm looking for a change in the future. I'm working for not this generation, not the next, not the fourth or the fifth that will change the vegan world. And that's quite far away. So I can only work with an idea. But that's what many vegans like me, we work on that premise of changing a lot for a future that is quite far away. Most people don't do that. Most people don't think about the future, especially if they don't see it. And they don't think about changing. So that's why we find in a position. But how can we change that? Well, we're not going to change it through persuasion, I don't think, because they're stuck into their ways. We're actually going to change it by us growing in numbers, us meaning the radical animal rights vegan idealists, and other people looking at us from a distance saying, you know what? I want to be like them. So they look in the right track. They look decent people. They look that they're the ones achieving the things that I'm more proud of in this world. So I want to be a decent human being. I'm going to join them. So it's not about persuading them if they don't want to be. It's about attracting them to our way of thinking. And for that, our way of thinking has to be pristine, has to be nice, has to be good, has to be embracing other cultures, has to be open, has to be energetic, optimistic, and it has to work. And that's what we need to do as a vegan, show that what we do works and what we mean is meaningful.
That's really beautiful, and it's a beautiful way to live. But what is your advice? I mean, everybody working, when I was thinking of this when you were talking about that almost everybody working, even for minor welfare reforms, because they see that as the way forward, is vegan themselves. They're just trying to do the thing that they think is going to help animals. I mean, the people who are fighting for it, but so it's more disagreement about technique than it is disagreement about what the world is about. And so, we all, I think everybody working for it deserves respect for maybe they're getting it wrong, maybe they're not, I don't know, but they deserve respect. But the way you're talking about is a way that I think many people would like to embrace, because they want to be open and public about what they really believe, and they want to fight for the thing that they actually believe in, not for some halfway measure. But in addition to being, all the things that you mentioned about clarity and trying to get it right, and being open to or being the ethos to other issues as well. How do you act in the world? I mean, what you're doing is writing books. What is your suggestion to other people who, I mean, I think this has like always been the whole goal of Our Hen House, is to be a platform that can bring ideas to people who have this passion, have this understanding, want this world to exist, but are trying to think of the way to do it. So, what are your ideas of how do you pull this off, rather than just staying home and thinking the right thoughts?
That's the right question. So what I did, I only can tell you what I did, is tried as many things as possible and tried to see the ones that work for me. And through the process of trying, learning first my skills, which the things that are compatible with my way of looking at the world, or the things that are too hard for me to do, and then also how other people react and whether I'm achieving anything. So if you look at my CV from animal protection, I have done loads of stuff for different organizations, for different subjects, animal subjects, bullfighting, hunting, investigations. Now I'm writing, kind of feel that that's what I've been looking for decades, but it took me a long time. I already was a writer before I discovered I was a writer. It took me even a long time to identify my quality as a writer, being thinking, oh, how can I write in English? It's my fourth language, nobody's going to read. And then overcoming the psychological barrier, and then suddenly, yeah, people like the way I write. So that's what you need to do with yourself, because I can tell with each individual person which are the qualities they have, which are the obstacles they have to overcome, and keep trying until you find something that fits. But rather than reduce your goals because you want to fit in quickly, don't reduce. You keep your integrity as strong as you can and as intact as you can, and move around until you find a niche for it, as opposed to don't move around, just change who you are in order to accommodate whoever's around you, or the campaigners you know, or the vegans you know. No, there might be vegans you don't know that do other things that actually fit better the things you want to do. Just move around, try and experiment, and don't feel bad if you stop something and then start something else. This is part of the learning process. And sooner or later, if you live long enough, you find something that you realize, oh, that is it. That is it. That's what I'm good at. And I didn't really reduce an ounce of my goals or an ounce of my optimism. And even if the world is very bad, I can see the light through me keep doing this for the rest of my life.
Well, sticking on the kind of theme of advice, and as we start to wrap up a bit, even though, my God, I could talk to you about so many things. What is your advice to those who are listening about dealing with the costs of becoming the person who sees what most people won't look at? Like, how do you avoid either numbness or rage becoming your entire personality?
Yes, that is a tricky one, because people are different and people go through different phases. There's some people that are angry or they have an angry face. Other people are sad, they have a sad face. Of course, there are activism and words to express in a sad way that are better than others, like a vigil, for instance, or in a more aggressive if you are angry, like a demonstration, thing like that. But this is sometimes the character of the person as a whole, or sometimes it's a phase that the person goes through during an age period, or because something happened personally that makes that way. So there is always one way of activism that will fit more your mood, I would say. But the point, the most important is that these moods might be temporary and they might just not necessarily define who you are. I think the most important thing you need to do is to define who you are. Figure out first who you are, which is not an easy thing to do. You're constantly hearing people telling you who you are, with them not knowing anything about you. When I was born in Catalonia. That was under Franco, it was a fascist dictatorship at the time. My name was an illegal name. Jordi was a Catalan name. It was illegal under Franco. So I said, my parents said, "You're Jordi." And people in the States said, "No, you're not Jordi." And people told me, "No, you are not Catalan." So I was constantly receiving information about who was I, the wrong information about my identity. So I had to go through and discover who I am. Anybody should go through that. And if you can find through that process the identity of vegan in whatever word you want to put it, that means somebody wants to dedicate the life of trying not to harm anyone and trying to help the most to those who need the most help. Simple as that. Not harm, help. If you can find this as this is actually who I am, then everything will come naturally. Then, because if you try to imitate somebody's behavior without actually changing yourself, it will be forced. You will be too tired. It will be you will not achieve what you want to be. You will be disappointed because you're not really living your life. You're living somebody else's life. So you need to find who you are first, what you want to do, and then look around the places that you feel more comfortable with. That's what sentient beings do. Sentient beings, we have sentience, so we can get information from the outside, decide, is this the right place or not? No, then I move. That's what a sentient being is. So do what animals do, is move away from the bad places and the bad situations into the nice places for you, but you need to know who you are first. It's simple as that.
I remember years ago having like a friend break up, and I remember the friend was kind of saying mean things to me, the former friend. And I remember she said, "You don't even know who you are beyond being a vegan." And I will never forget that, because I think maybe it's true, and I think maybe that's because that's the foundation of who I am. I don't know. I honestly forgot all about that until listening to you talk and just thinking like, I found it fascinating more than offensive.
Yeah, to be honest, imagine rather than using the word vegan, which some people might not feel sympathetic with, just use the word good. And imagine the same question. You don't know who you are. You just think that you are good. Well, yes, exactly. That was the whole
Yeah.
point. So when you say, Marian, that the weight of veganism is so big, there's so many things that that little word is carrying so much weight. Well, imagine the word good or the word right. It's even worse than that. So, but that's exactly it.
Yeah.
The vegan is one of those category words of right, good, and vegan. They are for me the synonymous of what people should aspire to be. And also not just that, what I would say is there is a vegan in everyone. So if you don't let that vegan to grow and manifest itself, that might be your fault or the environment fault. But there is there because everybody has the capacity to be good. And that's what veganism is all about, is to be good in a systematic way that translates from both your behavior and the structures, political and social, that you live with.
Look at my eyeballs. I'm tearing up. That's what's
I'm
happening.
I'm sorry. I just want I know we have to tie up, but I just I maybe this is just a place you don't go and you just don't bother to go. But I always want to ask people like I find it very surprising that everybody isn't
Yeah.
vegan. Well, not everybody. You know, there's the psychopaths and there's the bad people and all of that. But most people are do want to be good. A lot of people really care about animals, like really do, or think they do. What's your explanation for why this is so
Yes,
hard?
for this is not the explanation, but for a woman, when I discovered I was autistic, that my answer was because they are not autistic. So, but it's not that simple, obviously. But it's part of it. The part of it is simplicity, not really understanding what to do, not really understanding the difference or where the line is crossed. So, having the intention to be good, but really not knowing the difference between good things and bad things, because they're surrounded of people that say this is good, what is not. So how are they going to learn the difference? It is constant contradiction in the labeling of good and bad around you. So you need to be either very detached of somebody's opinions and be very trustful in your own instincts and logic, or trust people that you know they tend to be more right than wrong. They know the stuff, they have the knowledge, they have the credibility necessary to understand the difference between wrong and right. And today is more difficult than any other time in history to do that because we are surrounded with falsehood so much. And we live in the post truth area. Almost everything we do is 100% non truth. So there is truth underneath. And you need to navigate the world of falsehoods, one on top of the other, to identify the truth. But it's there, it's underneath. And that sometimes takes skill, sometimes takes luck. So it's more difficult now. We are more we have more potential victims of being conned. You just been mentioning one of your podcasts not long ago that you were thinking, well, we had been conned in our lives before we became vegan. Well, we still are conned. Our brain hasn't changed. We're still vulnerable to somebody coming with an idea that sounds good and it's not, even within the vegan movement as well. So we are constantly need to reassess our belief and be sure, are we not being conned again? Are we not being given a false prophet, a false flag, a false direction? Where is the right track? And that's why for me, have you north, have the vegan world in the background always, knowing where you're going. But also you look at your step, how you contribute and with every action you do to that bigger picture. That constantly checking the bigger picture and the smaller picture is how I navigate all this world of falsehoods. And still I'm the victim, and I'm gonna be deceived by people. But at least I make an effort to find my north through all these jungles.
Is there anything that we didn't talk about that you wanted to talk about?
No, only that my books are there for people to read them, Ethical Vegan and White Vegan Dawn. Many of my ideas are there, developed, and they develop themselves further in blogs I had written. Many of the things I've written come from the books. And they will be useful for vegans and non-vegans, for non-vegans to understand what we talk about when we say veganism is a philosophy, but for vegans to find that clarity that we're just talking about. That many just got the label and that's the only thing they got. You still don't quite know the difference between vegan and vegetarian and plant-based and animal rights, animal welfare. And you need help to understand this. And who can help you? Well, the only thing I can say is the people that have been vegan for longer and they're older and they have experience and they move around and they see the world, they have a higher probability to understand better the situation than somebody that hasn't done any of this. That's why I write books now, not when I was 20 years old, because I'm already in my 60s. And so now I can say, okay, I learned something. I'm going to see whether that helps anyone. So read my books and everybody else's books.
I love it. Wow. And just reiterate how people can follow you online. What's the easiest way?
Well, just Google my name. I'm in all social media. So and I have a Wikipedia page as well. And from there, you can reach me in any way you want to.
And we will also put the links in the show notes for anybody who might be, driving or on the treadmill right now. I'm going to say your name correctly again in 3, 2, Jordi Casamitjana.
Yes, perfect.
Thank you again so much for joining us today. I know you're going to stick on for a few minutes, but I've never said this before, Jordi, in like the podcast land or in non-podcast land, but if you ever start a cult, please let me know because I would join it.
If I ever start,
I was wondering what that was going
if
to be.
I ever start a cult, I would not be part of it.
Wow. On that note, thank you. If you're listening, if you're watching, thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to hit subscribe and like and comment on your favorite podcatcher or YouTube. And thank you again to our guest. We will talk to you next time.